Hey there, my friends. My name is Jeremy Siskind. I'm the author of Jazz Piano Fundamentals, books 1 and 2, as well as Playing Solo Jazz Piano, second edition, available now. And don't forget that Jazz Piano Fundamentals is also offered in Spanish. Okay, now I've been thinking a lot lately about tension and release, and particularly tension and release while just improvising over a single mode. Of course, there's some practicality to this. We play tunes like So What and Impressions and Little Sunflower that stay on one mode for a long time. But I think even more so than that, if we can understand this kind of fundamental element of music, how to cause tension and release, then this is going to translate into general musicality in other types of tunes that aren't just on one mode. And you would think that it would be this easy kind of problem to solve, but I think it's actually really complicated. It involves phrasing, shape, note choice, inflection, rhythm. I mean, everything is involved in creating this sense of logical tension and release. And so what we're going to do today is talk about some of the elements that cause tension versus release. And then I want to look at Miles Davis's solo and see if we can find kind of some pattern. Miles Davis's solo on So What, I should specify. See if we can find some kind of a pattern regarding tension and release. This is going to be one of those videos where instead of being a knower and really being able to tell you exactly what's going on, I'm going to be kind of seeking with you. So we'll see how this goes. So tension and release. The question is, what are some things that cause tension and release? And most people, the first thing that they think about is note choice, right? And it's kind of interesting, in the Dorian mode, if we're thinking about D Dorian, certainly D is going to be the note of release, right? That is clearly home base. Probably, if we were taking score, if we were keeping score, F and A, would also be in that really release category, and then we'd put the 4 other notes probably in more of a tense category. E, G, B, and C. But what's kind of interesting is that I can actually engineer it so that E sounds more like a release and D sounds more tense. So, usually what we would be doing is we'd be aiming for here in each of our phrases. Okay, so so there I'm aiming for the root, I'm going away from it and then coming back. I could do the same thing with any note of that scale though, and I bet you're gonna still feel not maybe as much rest, but that same sense that we're feeling tension or release. So now I'm gonna aim for E at the end of each phrase. It actually totally works, right? Or let's take B, which is maybe the most colorful note. Again, the level of release is not going to be quite as much, but we can set up B to be our release note. Right, and notice I'm going from D, which should be the release note, to B. Unless your ear is completely different than mine, I'm still hearing tension and then release when we get to the B. So what this tells me is that, to some degree within this mode, it's not so much note choice that's giving us tension and release, which is really interesting. Now, certainly if I start playing notes out of the mode, there's not that much room for disagreement. But could I'm literally thinking out loud, could I set up this C sharp to be a point of release? I think I could. think I could set up that C sharp to be a point of release. Other notes outside of the chord, I probably couldn't. I couldn't probably make that E flat effectively a point of release. Okay, so there's note choice. Really not that important of a factor, interestingly. Another factor is shape. And simply, higher notes are perceived as more tense, and lower notes are perceived as more of a release. Okay, we can think about this in terms of speech, that if I want to ask you a question, I want to go up so that is left uncertain, and I say, how are you? How are you? Instead of, how are you? Right? You want to add that uncertainty. It's kind of natural to our human ears. You might have noticed when I was playing with those note choices, I was mostly coming from above. Right? It actually isn't as effective. Right? It doesn't have that same sense of if we come from below. So that's really interesting, right? The other element is phrasing, and this is a word I'm really trying hard to get to the bottom of. It has to do with a few things, but certainly one of them is where you play and where you rest. And in general, we like to aim for the end of a phrase when we are creating tension and release to be near a strong rhythmic position. Okay, let's define strong rhythmic position. It really depends on our underlying unit. So if we're thinking about measure by measure, the odd number bar lines are going to be strong, and the even number are going to be weak. And then, okay. So, this is why when we play the head of So What, for instance, this starts as a pickup rather than starts, after the first measure, because we want to aim for strong. So, and strong, 2, 3, 4, weak, 2, 3, 4, strong, 2, 3, 4, weak, 2. So we would call these generally two measure phrases. So we have a pickup here, and then we have a melody leading to the strong. Okay, and then we'd basically rest here. We have a melody leading to the strong, and then we'd rest. We have a melody leading to the strong, and then we rest. So, it's not necessarily impossible to reverse this, but you're not going to get the same natural sense of tension and release. Now, life would be really boring if we always had these same phrase model of these two measure phrases. So we can have other kinds of phrase models, right? We can have, for instance, phrase models based on shorter phrases where just each of the measure lines is our strong place, and each of the in-betweens is a weak. I'm just going to put W. You don't need to see me. You can look at this. So this is going to get old really fast. And looking at this, you can see why there's so often pickups in all kinds of music, because we're aiming with that pickup for the strong beat, right? And so we'll do something to finish the phrase there. We'll rest. That dotted line is rest. And then we'll have another phrase leading to the strong beat. Right? So think about... Now notice that one didn't end exactly on the strong beat, but we don't want all the phrase endings to be the same. But when we do think about that opening of so what, we're ascending, we're aiming for the strong beat, and we're aiming for the root. So we've got all three of these things: this ascending shape, phrasing that aims for the strong beat, and then a note choice that really provides clarity. And our two notes before that are two of our tense notes. So tense, tense, relaxed. Before we leave this phrase model, we also pretty commonly have longer phrases. In which only every two measures, no, did I do that wrong? I totally did that wrong. Only every four measures do we really get this feeling of a strong beat. So in this case, it's going to be strong. We're going to finish our phrase, rest for this dotted area, and then the phrase is going to kind of aim again every four measures. So it's going to be a variety of phrase models. So these are just three elements, but they're pretty, universal elements to creating this feeling of tension and release. And so now what I already did this, but I want to work with you on it a little bit. This is Miles Davis's solo on So What. It's my transcription anyway. And what I basically did is I figured out, or I asked myself, in these first 16 bars, where do I hear it as stable? And we can represent stability here through a D minor chord. And where do I hear it as leading? And we can represent leading here as a A chord of some kind. And, this kind of surprised me, but as I went through, I really wanted to alternate every measure between unstable on the even numbered measures, and that's represented in purple, and then stable on the odd numbered measures, and that's represented in the green. So listen to this. I'm going to play it with like A7s in the purple and D minors in the green. Like that, right? And just to be clear, choosing these two chords, I'm not thinking about note choice in particular. That's one of, these three kind of main factors. Now, there's parts where you can really see the phrasing clearly, right? Here, it's exactly what I'm talking about. We're leading to strong, weak, and we use that weak measure to lead to strong. Or, we could even see this instead of weak and strong as release, tension, release, tension, right? And again, here we clearly have kind of, never mind. And then down here again, it's these rests and holds where we really feel the release. Here's another phrase ending. Here's another phrase ending. Lots of phrases ending in this third measure of each four measure phrase here. And then look at the shapes. The last note of the phrase is almost always, or can I go ahead and say always, the lowest note, right? D is the lowest note. D is tied for the lowest note. D is tied for the lowest note. These are all the same. F is the lowest note. D is the lowest note. Okay, so that sense of up and down is so crucial. And then look, as we look at pitches, he's ending phrases on Ds, Ds, one F, Ds. He's ending them in very stable places, right? Now, what's really interesting, and I haven't gone and highlighted this yet, is that this is his second chorus. Now we're not looking at Ds anymore. Now he's done exactly what I did at the beginning of this demonstration. He's choosing an E and sometimes kind of a C as his stable note. You can see in each of the stable places, he returns to an E. So he's like just centering the harmony differently, which makes it really interesting. It colors it completely different. This is such a throwaway phrase that I'm highlighting in green, but it just shows you exactly how you can make something sound like tension and release. You got this rhythm that leads to the and of 4, which is just an anticipation of the downbeat. We're going down from the G to the E, and it makes it sound less tense. So if I were highlighting this in the same way, I'd still be able to highlight every other bar as release or tension, as kind of stable or less stable. So listen, now I'll play it with the D minors and A7s. And then notice in this next chorus here where he starts using a little bit of blues, if you're paying attention to the lines, now he's centering Ds again. Except he's ending this one on an A. So he kind of changes his tune a little bit, which means that this one overall feels more tense than this 8 measures. So it's kind of fascinating that there's this macro form to his solo. It's very advanced. All right. You might be confused. You might be astounded. I don't know. What can you do with this information? Well, so first of all, I would practice playing So What, alternating between this feeling of tonic and this feeling of dominant, right? And again, I'm not talking note choices necessarily. I'm talking about those 3 elements that are going to make it feel like away, home, away, home. It helps me to actually play this D minor to A7 to kind of remind myself, and then I can just do it in my head. 1, 2. Notice all my phrases are ending on that downward slope, and I'm kind of ending them in that first or that third bar, the odd numbered bars of the line. So you can practice thinking about these different elements of tension and release. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, a book like Playing Solo Jazz Piano, or maybe even Jazz Piano Fundamentals Book 2 might be a really good choice for you. You could order from jeremysiskind.com, and I'll send you a signed book. I've got plenty of inventory. So I'll see you later. Thanks for your comments and your likes and subscribes. Oh, if you, since we were talking about tension, if you watch the end of the video, say something about a massage. That'll help cure your tension better than anything we can do musically. See you later.